to moderate, potentially easing to levels within the target range of the Reserve Bank. This does not negate the reality that the journey ahead of us is going to be difficult, demanding the commitment of the government, private sector, and civil society. In the medium-term budget policy statement that was tabled on the 24th of November 2024, we provided an honest overview of the economic and socio-economic challenges confronting the Gauteng province. These systematic challenges have their roots in the historical constructs of our economy, whose vestiges continue to find expression economically, socially, politically, and spatially. At the contemporary level, the advent of the COVID-19 global pandemic that battered national economies did not spare the national and provincial economy. Whilst we have instituted practical interventions that are yielding some positive results, the recovery is not linear, nor is it without ongoing challenges. Key industries on which the provincial economy is anchored are still recovering. It is a process that has tested our resolve to overcoming, and as articulated in the MTBBS, our resolve is unwavering. It is strengthened by a collective and supportive environment and an emphasis on the quality of performance and service delivery. The theme of this year's budget speech is, and I quote, reaffirming and strengthening Gauteng's role in the continental economy. This theme captures an appreciation of the complexities that have had to be surmounted in compiling the 2025 medium-term expenditure framework budget aggregates, while also asserting the resolve of the Gauteng Provincial government in placing the economy both nationally and regionally. And this was one of the most difficult budgets to be put together, Premier, even by this own admission of the Treasury team, because of all these things that are happening as we have known. So there must be no doubt, even in the face of challenges that we face, that Gauteng is still the nerve center of the regional economy. The challenges that we are confronted with are not insurmountable. As a facilitate provincial delivery based on the medium-term development plan, strategic plans, and annual performance plans for the 7th administration. This approach is anchored on accelerating the implementation of G13 priorities, maintaining fiscal discipline and credibility, and impactful service delivery, responding to high-level provincial risks such as safety, economy, climate change, and debt management. Tabling of the 2025 provincial budget that will be aligned with provincial strategic plans, annual performance plans, and other planning and budgeting engagements, and introducing, testing, and implementing immediate short-term and medium-term budget reforms over the 2025 MTEF. This is against the backdrop of a deteriorating fiscal position that is driven by declining revenue, mounting debt obligations, and an increasingly unsustainable wage bill. Liquidity pressures are escalating, with net cash balance projected to turn negative by the 2025-2026 financial year, largely due to the eternal debt burden, persistent accruals, particularly in the Department of Health. In his 2025 State of the Province address, Premier Lesufi underscored bold, action-driven agenda to tackle the province's 13 pressing challenges, including but not limited to crime, infrastructure challenges, unemployment, and economic stagnation, while advancing inclusive growth and service delivery improvements. The State of the Province address also expressed a clear appreciation of the binding fiscal constraints, which required trade-offs and efficiency, while spending to sustain the momentum critical to realizing these aspirations. In this regard, we have implemented a compulsory baseline reduction across all provincial departments to sustain public finances. Service delivery interventions were, however, cushioned from deeper cuts since the fiscus was supplemented through provincial financing and the implementation of stricter cost containment measures. However, with a shrinking equitable share and slow economic growth, Gauteng provincial government departments must internalize these fiscal constraints and align spending with the 2024-2029 medium-term development plan. Failure to act decisively through expenditure oversight, keeping the overall wage bill under control, and exploring alternative funding models will risk deepening the liquidity crisis, threatening service delivery, and exposing the province to significant governance and fiscal risks. One of the measures to explore in augmenting the fiscus is to identify and tap into alternative revenue sources such as partnerships with private sector, donor funding, and developmental and blended finance. Fiscal discipline requires that government maintains fiscal positions that are consistent with macroeconomic stability and sustained economic growth. To reinforce fiscal discipline, the Gauteng provincial government must fund its requirements within the set budget ceilings. This necessitates large-scale budget reprioritization, making trade-offs as well as a drive to identify efficiency gains, all with the aim of enhancing credibility of the provincial budget. There is a common agreement that Gauteng provincial government must concertedly unlock allocative efficiency to maximize the desired impact of government expenditure on the socio-economic situation. This means that existing plans and budget must be repositioned to respond to the Gauteng provincial government policy priorities within the limitations of the reduced fiscal envelope. Compensation of employees is the largest of the government's expenditure and is hovering around 60%, and our target is to take it below 60%. It will be beneficial for the Gauteng provincial government to prudently invest in and manage human resources to yield efficiencies that will contribute to the province's focus on maintaining fiscal sustainability. While we recognize the need to retain critical frontline staff, we cannot afford to sustain an unchecked wage bill at the expense of essential services. All departments must ensure that staffing decisions are based on efficiency, productivity, and impact. This approach is not merely about cutting cost, it is about optimizing workforce deployment to ensure that every rand spent delivers tangible value to the people of Gauteng. The task ahead is unambiguous. The transition from a headcount-driven model to a performance-focused framework is not only necessary, but it is an obligation. We affirmed this posture in the 2024 medium-term budget policy statement by asserting that our service delivery imperatives must be anchored on, amongst other things, the professionalization, the plea of your party when we were consulting you on the budget, the professionalization of the public service as a mechanism for building a developmental state. As asserted by Professor of Public Affairs Mashupe Masirmule, based at the Tshwane University of Technology, the professionalization of the public service is fundamentally about following through the intentions of the Constitution and the National Development Plan, which is the country's long-range blueprint for socio-economic transformation. Thus, the public service must be performance-focused, ensuring that our spending priorities reflect value for money, sustainability, and service excellence. Accruals remain significant threats to Gauteng fiscal sustainability, eating into our spending power and distorting budget planning. Indeed, the Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, deplored the unattainable environment caused by accruals, which resulted in the budgetary allocations to departments being used to pay for prior year invoices for goods and services instead of current needs, setting off a vicious cycle of budget shortfalls, unpaid invoices, and a crisis in cash flow and the planning and predictability of the budget. So, EFF, some of the issues you raised in the consultations are related to this. Accruals, together with the irregular expenditure, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, contingent liabilities and overcommitments are the unwanted expenditures that we must do away with. One of the major causes of these unwanted expenditures is not securing funding before procuring goods and services or contracting with service providers, meaning that a commitment is not backed by cash or budget. MK, your representatives also raised this issue. Overcommitments, present service delivery risks and litigation risks when provincial departments and entities becomes unable to honor their commitments due to funding constraints. A province-wide accrual reduction strategy is being implemented, focusing on strict procurement discipline, upfront payment verification process, and strengthened consequence management for officials responsible for financial mismanagement. Furthermore, in line with national directives, we will treat accruals as a first charge against department's budget, ensuring that no new spending is approved until outstanding obligations are settled. Honorable Premier, the only two departments that will be excused from this is the Department of Agriculture and Department of Environment, because they are new. We have agreed that we will take care of their accruals. But for everyone else, it's minus. This government will not allow accruals to cripple service delivery or push small businesses into financial distress due to delayed payments. Our commitment is clear. We will restore fiscal credibility by ensuring that every rand spent is every rand accounted for. Member Ngobeni, the payment of service providers, and you'll see in the speech, we're taking it to the next level, Premier. We will have an ombudsman properly capacitated, institutionalized, to be given the mandate by EXCO. And once their decisions have been taken and they're final, Treasury will cut whoever's owing service providers budget and we pay, because we cannot have a province that does not pay SMMEs. So the Gauteng province continues to focus on identifying efficiencies and achieving value for money in the supply chain management environment to give effect to fiscal sustainability through procurement. This includes procurement of goods and services including infrastructure at prices that are aligned with realistic current market price range. EFF, the issue you have raised, we have communicated to the Premier. Premier, the issue of allocation of functions. Every department that is expected to implement whatever functions we have allocated, they must do it without any fear or favor. So that's one of the issues that the EFF has raised, and we have committed that we are going to support them and ensure that we move with speed, because that also brings about credibility of the state and it ensures that there is order and accountability. Additionally, we are considering innovative procurement modalities to ensure that value for money is obtained while simultaneously pursuing desired socio-economic objectives. This said, Madam Speaker, this budget invests significant resources to improve public education, healthcare, and social welfare, while also ensuring infrastructure service delivery that drives the development of sustainable communities. It supports inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Gauteng is the wealthiest province in the country and the region, and this wealth must translate into the improved quality of life for our residents. Research by the Gauteng City Region Observatory indicates that a quarter of households in our province still live in conditions of poverty. Furthermore, research produced in various higher learning institutions in our province indicates that a significant proportion of our residents experience food insecurity, meaning that they lack sufficient nutritious food. Member Ali, the leader of your party, Dade Maimane, this is one of the issues he raised with us and many other issues in the consultation. This illustrates the poverty dynamic in a wealthy region. It is for this reason that in our assessment of the service delivery and poverty alleviation strategies, we are focused not only on analyzing the underlying flows, that is, who enters and leaves poverty, rather than just focusing on the stock, which is the number of people living in poverty at a specific time. As a caring government, we have ensured that this budget also provides substantial resources to support and mainstream programs that focus on gender-based violence and support the rights of women, youth, senior citizens, people with disabilities, military veterans, and the LGBTIQ plus community. Member Adams, some of those issues about specific communities are raised here, and some of the issues raised as well by MK are also raised here. It also includes allocations to address femicide as well as violence against women and children, a national pandemic that demands urgent attention from all stakeholders, including the government, private sector, and civil society. Madam Speaker, let me now reflect on the state of the economy to provide context on the budget. Member Alberts, you'll remember some of the issues you raised about investment, they are catered here. The global economic environment is characterized by uneven growth prospects for different regions, rising debt levels and geopolitical tensions, including protectionist policies and populism. The International Monetary Fund contends that advanced economies grew by an estimated 1.7% in 2024, unchanged from 2023. Projections are that growth will improve marginally to 1.9% in 2025. Strong growth from economies such as Canada, the United Kingdom, and the European Union supports the improvement of growth in advanced economies. Growth for the emerging market and developing economies is estimated at 4.2% in 2024, and projections are that growth will stabilize at the same rate in 2025. The economy of sub-Saharan Africa is expected to rise from 3.6% in 2023 to 4.2% in 2024. Growth is expected to improve to 4.4% in 2025 as supply limitations gradually ease and the adverse effects of previous weather shocks gradually fade. On the domestic front, South Africa continues to experience weak economic performance due to structural challenges and logistical constraints. As a result, Statistics South Africa says the country's economy grew by 0.6% in 2024. National Treasury projects that our economy will grow by 1.7% in 2025 and 2026 respectively. Gauteng remains the biggest contributor to the South African economy, with the province currently contributing 35% to the national gross domestic product. The provincial economy continues to grow above national rate. Our economic grew by 1.3% in 2024. It is expected to rise to 1.8% in 2025 before reaching 2% in 2026. But as you know, honorable members, the president has set the 3% target. It means we must work towards the 3% target, and the premier of our province will announce at the investment conference that target and what are we going to do to take it forward. There is no question that more work still needs to be done to achieve economic growth levels necessary to create much needed jobs and improve the living conditions of people. In line with Growing Gauteng Together 2030 plan, we continue to transform our economic landscape by, amongst other things, investing in strategic areas such as special economic zones to boost manufacturing with a conscious view to reindustrialize the economy. Just on Sunday, me and the Premier had the privilege of driving to the IDZ with one of the potential investor who will be investing about 2.5 billion in the OR Tambo industrial zone. And we will announce that and many other investments in there. So there's a lot of good things to say. You will clap at the end. We are actively modernizing Gauteng's economy through investment in broadband networks. Member Jamin, Wiseman raised a whole range of issues from the IFP point of view on these issues, and we have agreed that we would want to engage with the IFP, not with the MEC, with the IFP on some of these issues in terms of how we take them forward. And investment in new green technologies. Because we know the MEC shares our perspective. So the MEC will help us to engage the IFP. That's why. so the MEC will be on the government delegation. So the Gauteng government will be piloting digital systems and automation, and this is very important, in supply chain processes to ensure the efficient use of both humans and financial resources of the province. Gautrain, our agency, has been having digitized supply chain processes since 2013. We are now taking this to departments. We will announce, because we still have to consult with the Premier on which departments we are going to prioritize so that we no longer have paper, Honorable Letswalo, for our supply chain. Everything must be automated. And then we must reduce human interference, because we want to deal decisively with corruption as well. And this, you'll remember, is in addition to the other efforts we have made previously, which we'll talk about. However, government alone cannot address all challenges facing our province. Therefore, we are building social partnerships with business, civil society, tertiary and research institutions, not only to enhance innovation, but to also massively boost investment into the province. That is why on the 3rd of April, 2025, we will host the first Gauteng Investment Conference. Our aim is to attract 800 billion investment commitments into the province over a period of 3 to 5 years. Our objective is to push for a total of 300 billion of this investment to be secured in the 2025-2026 financial year. And we are working every day. As I've said, on Sunday, we're with one investor. On Thursday, I will be with another investor that is investing about 7 billion rands. And we are working every day, mobilizing and resolving the problems of the investors. This investment drive is focused on areas that are key to our growth plan, including innovation, industrialization, sustainability, green energy, ICT, infrastructure, transport, manufacturing, and township economies. The event will also be an important platform to engage with private and public sector investors on policy measures to bolster energy security, revive industrial competitiveness, and leverage private sector investment to fast-track economic recovery and growth in Gauteng. We are convening this important gathering because fixed investment plays an important role in stimulating economic growth. By channeling funds into long-term assets such as machinery, infrastructure, and technology, businesses enhance their production capacities and efficiency. This investment will not only boost the output and competitiveness of the economy, but it will also stimulate job creation as new fixed investment and expansions require additional labor. In Gauteng, our gross fixed capital formation is mainly driven by our metropolitan municipalities, the city of Johannesburg, city of Tshwane, and the city of Ekurhuleni. City of Joburg consistently recorded the highest GFCF levels, starting at approximately 100.6 billion in 2016 and declining to 17.6 billion in 2022 at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite this sharp decline, investment rebounded in subsequent years, reaching 83.99 billion in 2023, signaling a recovery. In the city of Tshwane has also followed a similar trajectory, declining from 64.8 billion in 2016 to 48.5 billion in 2020. However, City of Tshwane's recovery has been slower than City of Johannesburg, reaching 53.78 billion in 2023, indicating ongoing structural investment challenges. The city of Ekurhuleni also saw a steady decrease from 63.3 billion in 2016 to 45.6 billion in 2021, with investment picking up slightly to 50.6 billion in 2023. The analysis of these trends indicates structural pressures, including contractions in manufacturing, construction, and public infrastructure spending, alongside growth in agriculture and mining. These trends underscore fiscal limitations, while modest sectoral gains signal opportunities for targeted interventions. We therefore take this opportunity to invite decision makers in the public and private sector to join us on the Gauteng Investment Conference to chart a path of recovery and growth for the Gauteng economy. We must work together to unlock the resources that are in both the public and private sectors, invest them into the provincial economic landscape, and strategically drive the province's economic growth into the future as we redefine and reaffirm our role in the regional economy. That's why, Member Albert, we thank you for those initiatives and the people that you linked with the Premier, because that's what we believe that compatriots must do, help us to grow the economy and not just criticize us. Honorable members, we are convinced that to deal decisively with the monopoly structure of the economy, we must promote the development of small businesses, particularly township enterprises and cooperatives. Over the past 5 financial years, the Gauteng Provincial Government has invested a total of 51.1 billion, Member Ngobeni. Remember the point I was making in the committee. 51.1 billion in township-based enterprises owned by blacks, women, youth, people living with disabilities. I'm not sure if they're here because they've instructed me to say something about people living with disabilities, and I am not just saying something, I'm announcing something tangible. The military veterans, through our preferential procurement spend, we also welcome President Ramaphosa's announcement during the State of the Nation address with regard to the fast-tracking of regulations of the Public Procurement Act. The Gauteng Provincial Treasury is actively involved in this process with representation in various reference groups established by the National Treasury to shape the development of public procurement regulations for the country. Through these platforms, we are advocating for policies that drives inclusive economic participation and sustainable growth. We are equally pleased with the announcement by the President that the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition is establishing a transformation fund worth 20 billion a year over the next 5 years to provide funding to black-owned enterprises. These initiatives are aligned with our progressive approach focused on achieving meaningful transformation of the economy and job creation, guided by our groundbreaking Township Economic Development Act. Honorable members, most of our municipalities continue to table unfunded budgets because they did not have a sustainable revenue base. For this reason, we welcome President Ramaphosa's announcement during the State of the Nation address that a process will be initiated at national level to develop a white paper on a modern and fit-for-purpose local government system. The Gauteng Provincial Government and municipalities will fully participate in this process because we are committed to a local government that works better for the benefit of citizens. In 2023, the National Treasury granted approval to 5 municipalities in Gauteng, namely Emfuleni Local Municipality, Lesedi Local Municipality, Mirafong City, Mohali City, and Randwen City to participate in the ESCOM debt relief program. I must take this opportunity to congratulate Rand West City for being the first municipality in the country to receive a debt write-off of 279.7 billion from the ring-fence debt of 839.7 billion after complying with all 14 conditions in the first cycle of the ESCOM debt relief program. Emfuleni Local Municipality has also been granted one-third write-off of its debt amounting to 1.9 billion from a ring-fence debt of 5.9 billion. Mohali City has also recently received a relief of the ESCOM debt amounting to 79 million, which is a one-third write-off of its debt following compliance with conditions set out. Promoting good governance and transparency is key to the development of a clean, ethical, and accountable government capable of providing quality basic services to the people. In 2023-2024 provincial audit outcomes saw 7 departments receive clean audits, while the remainder achieved unqualified audit outcomes. At municipal level, we recently welcomed the 2023-2024 audit outcomes in which 2 municipalities received clean audit opinions, while 6 municipalities achieved unqualified audit opinions. As part of our commitment to clean governance, transparency, and accountability for public funds, the annual financial statement for 2024-2025 financial year will be prepared and submitted to the Auditor General of South Africa as required by sections 40, subsection 1, subsection B, and section 55, subsection 1, subsection B of the Public Finance Management Act of 1999. We intend to maintain current audit outcomes and improve them even further. To improve our financial management and ensure effective budget controls, we will pilot advanced interoperability between our financial and procurement systems. This initiative will allow for seamless data exchange and better tracking of expenditure. Additionally, we will implement automated budget validation processes. So we're going digital now, everything digital, to prevent the creation of purchase orders without sufficient funds, thereby ensuring strict adherence to allocated budgets. We are also introducing real-time alerts to detect potential budget overruns early, enabling proactive intervention and corrective measures to maintain financial stability and accountability. This initiative will enhance compliance with Treasury Regulations 8.2.3, which mandates the payment of invoices within 30 days. And what this means, Premier, is that the Treasury is now going to be agile, and it's going to be decisive, and that Treasury must also dirty its hands. So Treasury will not be liked, but for the right reasons. Because if people don't do things right, we are going to intervene. We've already intervened in one of the department. They're not happy, but we are doing it. We are doing it. As part of our commitment to continuous improvement, we are excited to introduce the invoice management system, a cutting-edge AI-driven platform designed to bring innovation and efficiency to invoice processing across Gauteng Provincial government. So from the 1st of April, this invoice is going to be introduced, but we want an even more sophisticated invoice system so that it must never take long for departments to process invoices and for Treasury to pay, because the systems must be able to capture everything. This fully automated systems aims to reduce delays, enhance accuracy, and provide real-time visibility into suppliers' invoices. The successful pilot program for Gauteng Provincial Government linked card processing devices in Mirafong, already we have started, municipality, has established a precedent for future initiatives. The plan is to expand this implementation to all municipalities in Gauteng. Honorable Dial, this strategy will ensure that revenue is directed to the province while municipalities continue to receive their agency fees, promoting collaborative approach to governance. Since 2014, we have implemented the open tender system, subjecting all bids over 2 million to probity audit. And as far as I know, Gauteng is the only province, the only government that has got an open tender system. To date, more than 420 projects, Honorable Adams, 420 projects with a value of more than 42 billion have been awarded through open tender, and the province has not incurred irregular expenditure on nearly all these transactions, which means this system works. And once we reinforce it with automated procurement, I think we will be flying like Orlando Pirates. You see what Mfukeng did to Sundowns, it's what we will do to this. Honorable members, let me now turn to the fiscal environment and start by emphasizing that government expenditure is dependent on the availability of revenue collected from various sources, including taxes. Weak economic growth means less revenue for collection. This, by implication, results in a decrease in what the national in a prudent, sustainable way, while ensuring the provision of basic services to the people of Gauteng. The budget I table for your consideration today is anchored around, amongst others, the following principle: curbing the growth in provincial budget deficit, ensuring long-term fiscal sustainability in the challenging socio-economic environment through maximizing premier own revenue collection, and we'll come to that point, not today, in detail. Donor funding, blended financing, public-private partnerships, trade-offs, and downscaling or stopping of programs. Unlocking allocative efficiency by repositioning existing plans and budgets to respond to the Gauteng Provincial Government's policy priorities within the constrained fiscal envelope. Realization of efficiencies in the provincial procurement processes. Focus on ready-to-deliver infrastructure projects that contributes to the elevated priorities. Protecting vulnerable, and in this case, the elevated priorities is the G13, G13. So we need to fix the language, yeah. The honorable members, Gauteng Provincial Government receives 95% of its revenue as direct transfers from national government. The remainder of revenue that makes up our total budget comes from own revenue, which includes motor vehicle license fees, gambling taxes, hospital patient fees, and interests earned in investment. These resources are important because they enable us to enhance and supplement our revenue to fund provincial priorities, particularly at the time when transfers from national government are declining due to weak economic performance. Over the past 5 years, the Gauteng Provincial Government owned revenue amounted to 36.8 billion, which on average was 7.2 billion per year, Honorable Mamabolo. In the current financial year, up to the end of February, the province has raised at least an amount of 7.3 billion, meaning will be going upward, which is slightly above average. So total owned revenue collection is expected to increase from 8.3 billion this coming financial year, 8.7 billion next financial year, 9.1 billion in the subsequent financial year. But Premier, me and you agree that's not enough. We need much more. And that's why we don't want to thumbsuck and bring figures that are not yet processed. I think in the adjustment budget, we will be announcing so that members must not say you announced this figure in the beginning now. Member Ali, it's because we don't want to thumbsuck, yeah. I want to give you proper figures to ensure that we reach and even surpass these targets. Provincial departments are implementing various strategies to enhance revenue collection, anchored on our provincial revenue enhancement strategy that is underpinned by the following principles. So this is important. We've got a revenue enhancement strategy. And this revenue enhancement strategy is about accelerating the completion of interventions that has already started, because there's a lot of interventions. Optimizing the existing revenue sources, enhancing revenue collection processes and systems to increase efficiency, cost effectiveness, and eliminate leakages, identifying potential new revenue sources that have not been explored, and the use of alternative funding and implementation models to achieve more value. Departments are prioritizing the collection of debt that is currently being owed by various stakeholders, including non-renewal of motor vehicle licenses and non-renewal of liquor licenses. The province is also looking into optimizing revenue collection processes and implementing smart technology solutions to ensure that we minimize revenue leakages. We are creating new innovative partnerships with the private sector on revenue sharing models, where the private sector will drive the funding and the implementation of some of these new models. Honorable members, let me now turn to the allocations for this and for this year, and begin by saying, when Minister Godongwani delivered his national budget speech, he reiterated the following, and I quote, "We must acknowledge that over time, Budgets tend to grow incrementally, often carrying forward historical allocations without necessarily reflecting the evolving need of our country. This approach has led to inefficiencies, misalignments, duplication, and in some cases, the continued funding of programs that do not yield the intended impact. And I close quote. So, the 2025 MTF budget for the Gauteng Provincial government that we are tabling today, Honorable Musai, Chair of the committee and members, it amounts to R500 billion, which is 527.2 billion to be precise, over the medium term. I read the numbers correct. In the LL, because there's a module for accounting for lawyers. But I said, don't ask me how I performed on that module. But it's there, it's in the curriculum. So it grows at an annual average of 3% from 171.5 billion in 2025-2026 to 175.1 billion in 2026-2027, before reaching 180.5 billion in 2027-2028 financial year. The 2025 MTF budget is characterized by compulsory and compulsory because of the conditions we find ourselves in. Baseline reductions across all Gauteng provincial government departments and entities to accommodate the downward revision of the provincial equitable share, and further baseline reductions to accommodate the provincial budget deficit. It comprises of transfers from the national government with provincial equitable share growing by an annual average of 4%, 133.9 billion in the 2025-2026 to 138.9 billion in 2026-2027, 149.2 billion in 2027 and 2028 in the outer years of the MTEF. Conditional grant allocations will increase from 28.9 billion in the 2025-2026 financial year to 29.2 billion in 2027-2028 in the outer year of the MTF. The adjustment in the data formula of the provincial equitable share has resulted in the overall decline in national government transfers to the province, amounting to 6.2 billion over 2025 MTF. However, and this is a figure I explained when we met with the political parties, when we were consulting what this means. However, this has been partially offset by the following amounts allocated by the National Treasury: 3 billion over the MTF to offset the higher than budgeted for public sector wage settlement, meaning that we have been given money to take care of the wage bill, so we will not have that problem in Gauteng. A once-off allocation of 207 million in 2025-2026 MEC Chilwani for the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, targeting the teacher assistance program in the Gauteng Department of Education. The net effect of these developments, taking into consideration the additional allocations for the public sector wage agreement and the teacher assistance program, is an overall decline of 2.9 billion in provincial equitable share over the 2025 MTF. Madam Speaker, let me now turn to the budget allocation to the departments for 2025-2026 financial year, which are as follows. And I think that's what everyone is here for, to hear what they have. We start with the Office of the Premier, which receives, no, this figure. The Office of the Premier, I don't want to announce, it's a lot of money, Premier, for you. Uh, what they've written, it's a lot of money. I don't want to announce what I have for the Premier. It's just over 500 million in this financial year, but about 1.5 billion in the MTF. 4.6 billion over the MTF to enable it to lead the Gauteng Provincial government in the implementation of the 2024-2029 Gauteng medium-term development plan, as well as combating crime, boosting economic growth, ensuring energy, and that is, includes the Department of Safety, yes. And then the provincial legislature, and this is important, Madam Speaker, because I'll explain, it receives 1.2 billion in 2025-2026, and it grows to 3 billion over the MTF period to propel confidence in democracy and improve the quality of life of Gauteng residents. So the total budget includes funding political parties and constituency support. This is to support Member Adams, to support, so on our part, we've played our part, Member Adams. You'll deal with the rest, the legislature. This is to support increase in the number of political parties represented in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature from 6 to 11 to fulfill their role as public representatives in the 7th administration. The Gauteng Department of Economic Development will be allocated 1.6 million in the 2025-2026 financial year and 4.2 million in total over the MTF. These resources will be used to promote investment in the development of industrial and economic infrastructure and prioritize the economic development of townships and deteriorating areas and the urban, peri-urban areas. A total of 222.6 million in 2025-2026, 63.7 million over 2025 MTF has been allocated towards implementation of industrial parks. The Gauteng Department of Health 2025-2026 financial year allocation, Member Bloom, amounts to 66 billion and a total of 209.1 billion over the MTF to strengthen the public health system, to deliver patient-centered equitable care, particularly in underserved communities through the modernization of infrastructure, digitization of health records, improving governance mechanisms and capacity building to tackle effectively both communicable and non-communicable diseases. In the 2025-2026 financial year, the Gauteng Department of Education receives 69.6 billion and cumulatively 211 MEC Matume, you want to smile, 211.2 billion over the MTF to expand access to quality basic education and early childhood development and improve education outcomes for women, girls, youth, and persons with disabilities. They will also be focused on delivering high quality education across the foundation, intermediate, senior, and the further education and training phases, changing of the education 2026 financial year and 16.8 billion over the MTF, Honorable Mazibugo. This is to secure social compacts and partnerships to build a skilled and capable workforce, implement a single window urban poverty and hunger elimination approach, and strengthen support for homeless and vulnerable persons. Furthermore, the department will be offering comprehensive skills development through the integration of skills development initiatives within its various service offerings. The Gauteng Department of Cooperative Governance, Honorable Mamabulo, receives 551.4 million in the 2025-2026 financial year and 1.7 billion over the MTF to carry out its role of strengthening integrated planning, cooperative governance, and improved oversight and coordination at the center of government. This will be achieved through programs that support development and integrated planning and improving oversight as part of building capable ethical developmental state in support of outcome 3.1 of the 2024-2029 medium-term development plan. In the 2025-2026 financial year, the Department of Human Settlement will be allocated an amount of 5.8 billion and in total 16.6 billion over the MTF towards the provision of access to inclusionary human settlement opportunities, such as the optimization of land use via the Rapid Land Release Program, provision of housing opportunities, including the servicing of stands through mega housing projects, as well as job creation opportunities through the expanded public works program. Member Masilela, the issue you have raised of that mega project, we will deal with it. The Gauteng Department of Roads and Transport 2025-2026 allocation is 9.7 billion and 28 billion over the MTF is primarily for the provision of a safe, reliable, and affordable integrated transport system that enables equitable access to opportunities and enhances the quality of life for the people of Gauteng. Furthermore, these resources will be directed towards fixing of street lights and potholes, as announced in the G13 by the Premier, the issues that the Premier spoke about. The department will also upgrade and rehabilitate strategic road infrastructure, improving safe accessibility to special economic zones and job creation opportunities through the extended public works program. In the 2025-2026, the Department of Community Safety will receive 2.4 billion and 6.8 billion over the MTF to protect, safeguard, and secure communities through improved policing and community safety efforts, establish a safe learning environment. Member Ngobeni, the issues you are raising, the 5 issues, they are funded here. So in the budget of the department, they will explain further. So we'll also deal with police stations and metropolitan police departments to ensure that quality service is provided to the citizens of the province. Further to this, the department will be deploying the Gauteng traffic wardens across the province as a force multiplier to strengthen police visibility and under the supervision of the Gauteng Traffic Police and the South African Police Services be part of efforts to restore law and order in all central business districts. The Gauteng Department of Agriculture and Rural Development will over 2025 MTF receive 2 billion with 647.3 million alone in 2025-2026 financial year to respond to the 2024 MEC Ramokgopa. To plan priority interventions of revitalizing the agricultural sector by creating employment through inclusive economic growth and positioning the province as an agro-processing hub. In addition, the department will be providing technical and financial support to small and medium agro-processing enterprises and enabling the commercialization of agro-processors through financial and technical support. The department will also be launching 5 blended financing instruments, including an agro-processing fund to provide grants and loans to agripreneurs. The Gauteng Department of Sports, Arts, Culture and Recreation will receive an amount of 1 billion in the 2025-2026 financial year and 3.1 billion over the MTEF. These resources are aimed at integrating sports and the arts into the community development plans with a view to promoting arts and culture into the educational settings and supporting extracurricular activities in the life of each learner in partnership with the Gauteng Department of Education, as well as celebrating diversity through the cultivation of an environment where every citizen feels valued. The department, through strategic partnerships, will bid for and host national and international sport, arts and culture events such as professional boxing, West Rand Marathon, Soweto Marathon, through an allocation of 40.8 million in 2025-2026 and 126 million over the MTF. Mass participation program to promote a healthy lifestyle within communities will be conducted, including but not limited to the Premier Social Cohesion Monadi holiday programs, the 6 indigenous games, tournaments, and Move for Health, for which 7.9 million in 2025-2026 and 24.9 million over the MTF is set aside. The Gauteng Department of E-Government is responsible for the expansion of information and communication technology, connectivity across the province, and towards this end, Honorable Dlamini has been allocated an amount of 1.5 billion in the 2025-2020 sports in all townships as towards improving the living conditions in townships, informal settlements, and hostels. The department will also be installing closed-circuit television cameras in townships to strengthen the battle against crime, corruption, vandalism, and lawlessness. Again, Gauteng Provincial Treasury will receive 787.8 million in the 2025-2026 financial year, and cumulatively 2.4 billion over the MTF to ensure that the provincial strategies are funded through projects and other initiatives that are aligned to the theme adopted by the 7th administration. Provide capacity support for the timely planning and delivery of infrastructure projects in Gauteng province. Implement support interventions to improve municipal financial management practices at delegated municipalities through deployment of municipal finance experts. The Gauteng Department of Infrastructure Development, or rather Department, allocation for the 2025-2026 financial year amounts to 3.6 billion, Honorable Mamabulu. The additional 207 that you get, you'll receive additional instruction from Treasury on how that money is going to be spent, and then we'll speak to you. No, we'll tell you, not the way you want to. You must pay the debts. So 3.6 billion, cumulatively is 10.8 billion over the MTF. So these resources are intended to support the economy through the revitalization of central business districts, into vibrant economic hubs in a manner that ensures that precinct developments are completed to accommodate Gauteng provincial government departments and regional offices. The Gauteng Department of Environment, MEC Peters, I saw your message. The department receives 611.4 million in the 2025-2026 financial year and 1.8 billion over the MTEF to respond to priority interventions identified in the 2024-2029 medium-term development plan. So, MEC Peters, the issues that you raised are being dealt with. I'm sure you agree. These are, amongst others, the expansion of the Buntlekibutu program to support the Central Business District Revitalization Plan, review of the Provincial Integrated Waste Management Plan for regulatory compliance, the comprehensive feasibility study of the development of an integrated waste management facility, and climate change action plan, climate indaba and climate finance, the strengthening of integrated spatial and built environment planning, ensuring sustainable land use management, and the mainstreaming of climate change adaptation and mitigation within the province. Despite the downward revision of budgets and reprioritization within and between budget votes, the priorities highlighted in the state of the province address are funded in the 2025 MTF budget, Honorable Premier. We are confident that they will yield a measurable impact in delivering meaningful change for the people of Gauteng, Honorable members, infrastructure development is one of the key drivers of economic growth and job creation. In the next 3 years, the Gauteng Provincial Treasury will spend 36.6 billion on infrastructure sourced from provincial equitable share and conditional grants. Empirical evidence indicates that most of our infrastructure projects creates employment. In terms of education infrastructure, it is anticipated that 13,436 jobs will be created on infrastructure projects in the 2025 MTF, while 12,653 jobs will be created on road infrastructure projects. However, we are concerned that our infrastructure spending as Gauteng has repeatedly fallen short owing to late project approvals, community disruptions, poor contractor performance, and inadequate planning capacity. This underspending has worsened unemployment and left critical projects stalled, including road maintenance and school infrastructure. To accelerate infrastructure rollout and address the persistent delays that have stalled the province's development, we are fully leveraging the reconfigured budget facility for infrastructure. The introduction of multiple bid windows will ensure that priority projects spanning roads, energy, water, and urban renewal are submitted, approved, and implemented without unnecessary bureaucratic delays. We are aligning with national infrastructure financing reforms. This includes simplified public-private partnerships regulations and an expanded public facility for infrastructure blended private and public financing, and strengthening project preparation to ensure that future infrastructure rollout remains on schedule and within budget. The days of underspending and delayed projects must come to an end. In addition, in line with the national reforms, we are exploring the credit guarantee vehicle as a mechanism to de-risk projects and unlock private capital without placing an unsustainable burden on the public purse. Our comprehensive research indicates that not all Gauteng infrastructure projects are economically feasible. Some are not fit for purpose, while others are sustainable in the longer term in terms of operations and maintenance costs. Thus, we are increasing our focus on infrastructure projects that are not only sustainable, but also directly contribute to an increase in the own revenue stream of GPG and contribute to economic growth and development. In the 2025 MTF, our focus is increasingly shifting towards the delivery of infrastructure projects that generate significant financial returns. We will do this through various mechanisms and unlock financial potentials of alternative sources of funding within the public and private sectors. Gauteng Provincial Treasury will not shy away from stepping up and taking leadership in addressing the numerous infrastructure challenges that we are faced with. Gauteng Provincial Government departments, entities, implementing agents, contractors, and professionals shall be held accountable as the key role players in the infrastructure value chain. And that's why those who don't deliver, they shall be blacklisted. This includes the mainstreaming of various steps to address numerous inefficiencies, wastage, and leakages within the infrastructure value chain. Poor planning, substandard delivery, and lack of governance control in terms of infrastructure outputs are no longer accepted. The infrastructure performance and cost guidelines and instructions that are applicable from the 1st of April 2025 shall contribute to enhance value for money through infrastructure development. Gauteng provincial government departments and entities have already been exposed to a robust budget regime for infrastructure through the Premier's Infrastructure Committee. Over the 2025 MTF, this approach will be intensified, not only within the provincial sphere, but also within municipalities. We have introduced measures to control the debt being incurred in terms of financial commitments entered into for infrastructure projects. This is imperative to ensure that we can honor our commitments and have control over our debts. Just like an individual, our provincial government can only spend within the available financial means. This calls for financial discipline, unity, and cooperation by all Gauteng provincial government departments and entities. The provincial government unanimously support this approach. Compliance with good governance is a cornerstone of our new approach. This will not be compromised, as we believe that over time, this will provide a solid foundation to attract additional funding from private and public sectors. During the finalization of the 2025 MTF budget, infrastructure projects that failed to deliver compliance with good governance were not allocated funding. We can and we shall deliver more with less. Our Honorable Premier has continuously stated that we must focus on less talk and more work. The Gauteng Provincial Government is deeply committed to ensuring that we deliver more infrastructure with less money. But budget cuts by the national governments are a reality, as evidenced in the recently tabled national budget. But we cannot allow this to impact negatively on infrastructure development and delivery, especially in Gauteng, that must continue to affirm itself as the regional economic hub. We can no longer only rely on infrastructure grants and equitable share to fund our strategic infrastructure investments, but we will still prioritize roads, transport, and related economic infrastructure that unlocks our investment potential. Honorable members, managing expenditure in the public sector requires a delicate balance amongst numerous competing priorities. It is crucial to allocate resources wisely, paying special attention to areas such as personnel, capital investments, and expenditures on goods and services, and improve the relationship between planning and budgeting as we strive for sustained fiscal sustainability. The Gauteng provincial government continues to focus on identifying efficiencies and achieving value for money in the supply chain management environment to give effect to fiscal sustainability through procurement. And these include the procurement of goods and services, including infrastructure, at prices that are aligned with realistic current market price range, together with considering innovative procurement modalities to ensure that value for money is obtained while simultaneously pursuing desired socio-economic objectives. That member who was saying like what, it's like this that I'm just mentioning now. In the 2025-2026 financial year, goods and services will account for over 33 billion of the budget that we are tabling today. It is essential to move beyond cost containment in the traditionally targeted line items like catering, traveling, and subsistence and venues and facilities, and zoom in on the big budget items such as property payments, medicines, medical supplies, computer services, and operating leases. In essence, what we are saying, Premier, all the evergreen contracts of your OEMs and all that, we are looking at them to ensure that there is value for money and not just look at the smaller items. We will be introducing a raft of instruction notes, Bishop, that will give effect to the enhancement of efficiency gains and the realization of value for money through the efforts that we've just outlined. For example, Honorable Mazibuko, there will be an instruction note for the proper governance and oversight of transfers by the Gauteng Department of Social Development to non-profit organizations to ensure transparency and accountability in the utilization of public funds. We are determined to ensure that the Gauteng Provincial Treasury dirties its hands and actively compels all Gauteng Provincial government departments and entities to do the right thing and spend resources prudently and efficiently to achieve more within limitations imposed on us. Madam Speaker, the expansion of the Gautrain remains a strategic priority for the province, but its financial sustainability has come under increasing scrutiny. Ridership levels have yet to recover to pre-pandemic figures, with passengers numbers dropping from 13.9 million in 2029-2020 financial year to 7.9 million in 2023-2024. The current Gautrain concession agreement between the Gauteng province and concession company will expire in March 2026. The concession agreement is a long-term fixed concession which is 19 and a half, 19 years, over 19 years. It commenced in 2006 as a greenfield project, and by the end of the concession term in March 2026, the Gautrain system will be a full paid asset of the provincial government, estimated to be valued 45 billion rands. The post-2026 Gautrain will also be procured via a public-private partnerships. We are currently engaged in a procurement process to appoint a new company to operate and maintain the Gautrain into the future. We will ensure that while the service is maintained post-2026, it remains within the limits of affordability and continues to deliver on the mandate of Gautrain of delivering value for money. As a province and country, we can indeed be proud to preside over a project that at the time of its concession in 2026 was the largest public-private partnership on the continent. Post-2026, the Gautrain will be the first transport initiative in the world to be concessioned as a triple P, affirming the place of Gauteng in the global space. In addition to the expansion of the Gautrain, the provincial government of Gauteng and Limpopo have concluded an agreement to facilitate a joint contribution towards the establishment of the Gauteng-Limpopo rail line to facilitate the movement of goods and people between the two provinces. This groundbreaking initiative will be jointly funded and facilitated by the two provinces alongside private sector investment. It is an expression of our commitment to intra-national and intra-regional trade as a foundation for the realization of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the world's largest free trade area, which aims to create a single market for goods. African. In conclusion, honorable members, we reaffirm the assertion that we made at the tabling of the medium-term budget policy statement in November last year, that the maintenance of fiscal discipline is non-negotiable. We will continue to prioritize the identification of efficiency gains and making trade-offs to fund government priorities. Fiscal discipline demands that the provincial and municipal governments maintain fiscal positions that are consistent with macroeconomic stability and sustained inclusive economic growth. Furthermore, provincial departments and entities must strengthen the exploration of alternative sources of funding to supplement the existing constrained revenue streams and thus enhance fiscal sustainability over the long term. Public-private partnerships are an anchor and vehicle to this approach and must be pursued committedly. The upcoming Gauteng Investment Conference, scheduled for the 3rd of April 2025 in Melrose Arch, is an expression of our commitment to a public-private partnership approach to the sourcing of funding and leveraging of resources. The Gauteng Funding Symposium which is currently underway. Unfortunately, we could not postpone it because of dates changes by national and all that. We would have wanted to be there, but currently underway in Santin is currently underway, and we remain committed to providing support for SMMEs and township enterprises whose value we have always affirmed. And that township, the funding symposium, Honorable Adams, we have facilitated the session between the funders and the SMMEs, because we are saying government can't be the only funder. So as the host province for the G20 summit, we will be maximizing the value of these public-private partnerships to reaffirm and strengthen the Gauteng economy. At this juncture of the budget, or rather of the speech, I want to thank the Honorable Premier of our province, Panyaza Lesufi, and members of the Executive Council for the progressive leadership and commitment that they have demonstrated over the past few months. I would also like to thank all members of the legislature for continuing to ensure that checks and balances are in place, ensuring that we do not deviate from our ambitious plan of action to redefine and reaffirm the place of Gauteng in the regional and global space. Unconditional gratitude is extended to all the political parties who contributed to this budget, providing guidance and counsel during the consultative process. It was actually inspiring, Honorable Premier, to listen to political leaders articulating the needs of their people and not talking about themselves. And that's why in this budget, today we're able to cater for the issues that they were raising, because they were not talking about themselves. They were talking about the constituencies that they represent. So this has ensured that we table a budget that reflects the aspirations of the residents of Gauteng with a common goal of improving their lives. Gratitude is also extended to all the officials of the Gauteng Provincial Government who wake up every morning deeply committed to service delivery for our people. Of course, we exclude the lazy ones, Premier. Yeah, the lazy ones, because there's an exception. Our partners in the private and civil society sectors are acknowledged for their continued support and for holding us to account for our duties. My sincere gratitude also goes to the staff of the Gauteng Provincial Treasury under the leadership of the head of department, Ms. Ngumi Samnyani, for their hard work to ensure the compilation of this budget. Premier, remember, even on Sunday, we're still busy trying to make sure that the numbers are numbered. Yeah, it's not easy to put together a budget. I've realized it's not like putting your budget at home. So finally, I want to thank the people of Gauteng for their understanding that through the difficulties that we confront, they remain our priority. As we table this budget during Human Rights Month, it is important that we understand that while the budget may be technical, it is fundamentally a tool that is aimed at ensuring the realization of the constitutionally enshrined rights of the residents of Gauteng and South Africa broadly. Delivering services to our communities is a duty to which we are bound by the constitution of our democratic country. A constitution that enjoins us to combine economic growth with human development and environmental protection. The resources that we've allocated are aimed at realizing these ideals. I wish to conclude by restating the instruction of one of the greatest African revolutionaries, Thomas Sankara, who posited that to carry our fundamental change, to carry out fundamental change, we must have, above all else, and I open quote, the courage to turn back on old formulas, the courage to invent the future. Close quote, and I thank you very much.
O e file ma. O e file ma. Thank you, thanks. Ke batla tšhelete ya ka, wa itse. Yeah. You see, Maile, I was waiting for the suitcase. Secretary, can you please read the second order?
Order number 2, introduction of the Gauteng Provincial Second Adjustment Appropriation Bill G002-2025 for the 2024-25 financial year.
Thank you very much. MEC Maile. The second adjustment.